Oda just dropped an absolute bombshell of lore and information when it comes to the history of the One Piece world. Thanks to finally being on Elbaf, we've been learning more and more about the Sun God and the history of this ancient land of giants. As it turns out, the giants of Elbaf all share a universal dream of becoming the Sun God. However, they have a hard time agreeing on what exactly that means and what the Sun God truly represents. And that's mostly due to translation and interpretation issues. Namely, when it comes to the Harley, which is an ancient religious text that's been passed down through the ages. It refers to two previous cataclysms, along with the current age, which all relate to the presence of the sun god Nika. As a result, some revere him as a king, while others believe he's a liberator. More see him as a destroyer, while some think he's a god of laughter. And now that we can read the Harley for ourselves, with our knowledge of the world in mind, we should be able to come to more profound ideas of what the truth really is. But that's not all, because we also have the ancient carvings of giant children during the Void Century. Although the petrified depictions are cherished as a part of their culture and heritage, they're also believed to only be the dream of a child, largely due to the fact that unity amongst various races is depicted, if the history of Elbaf has only ever known war. But this stuff is actually more like a picture book to go with the Harley. So we'll be breaking them both down at the same time. And the Harley itself is broken up into three parts: the first world, the second world, and the third world. Each of these represents a different era, and by extension, a different war and sun god. Beginning with the first line of the first world. There was fire upon the earth. Now, notice the distinction of Earth here. Within the library of Ohara, there was a geocentric model of the various planets. Each of the unnamed celestial bodies orbit the much larger planet Earth. The structure itself is a reference to one from the real world that was created by Ptolemy of Alexandria in the 2nd century. Alexandria is an Egyptian city that was once home to one of the greatest libraries in human history, which was burned down by Julius Caesar. And today, Ptolemy's very existence is non-existent outside of what little may be learned from his work. This is the man Professor Clover was based on. With this diagram, we know for certain that there are other observable planets. And thanks to Enel's great space operations, we have evidence that organic and highly intelligent life once existed on the moon. And if there was life on the moon, I believe we can at least entertain the concept of life previously being on the other planets as well. And this mural depicts both the moon and two planets. Next line. Humanity succumbed to desire and touched the forbidden sun. This seems to be akin to humanity's biblical tasting of the forbidden fruit, which resulted in them being cast out of paradise, as well as the Greek myth of Prometheus, wherein the god of fire defied his fellow gods by giving fire to humanity. Within the animal kingdom, we humans have managed to ascend to the top of the food chain thanks to our superior intelligence. Yet in the world of One Piece, there are various races of man, and naturally, humans are easily the weakest and least equipped for survival. As such, they were all too tempted to claim a power that would give them a major advantage. And this great power, or forbidden sun, was the original Mother Flame. The real-world discovery of fire is among, or even the, greatest thing to have ever happened for our species. There is evidence of even our ancient ancestors, Homo erectus, wielding it. With the story of Prometheus, fire also represents technology, the arts, sciences, and even civilization. And the mural depicts exactly that. The Mother Flame allowed humanity to become very technologically advanced. We can see complex mechanisms, skyscrapers, and emissions. These are things that undoubtedly cause great environmental harm. According to the law of conservation, energy cannot be created or destroyed, which is to say that it had to come from somewhere. And I'm under the impression that that somewhere was the other planets. We see various modes of light, or portions of the Mother Flame, all over the place. But there are some especially big ones being hefted along by what appear to be slaves. Behind them, we see a boat of sorts, which implies that they're coming from somewhere. And at this point, elsewhere is on a planetary scale. There are also slaves keeping this technologically advanced society going. They are similarly expressed as being from elsewhere based on the boat they stand on, and are treated as no different from cogs or machines, like how the moving floors of the Holy Land are powered by slave labor, along with the real-world history of slave ships. Some of these slaves appear to be downcast and sullen as they look at others, and the slaves they're looking at are motionless with discs over their heads as they descend. Presumably, these are halos over the heads of the dead. All the while, the flames continue to be harvested and brought onto the back of something. Something with a trunk that is large enough to heft around a massive vessel and several creatures. This looks to me like Zunisha, or at the very least, the massive elephant's kin. And at the very helm of the elephant is a darkened creature with a large crown, which is Imu. After all, Prometheus was championed by humanity, and Adam and Eve, who ate the forbidden fruit, were the first humans. As for what the elephant was carrying, we have the Ship of Promise, the Noah. Like the biblical story of Noah's Ark, there are a myriad of animals, and people who were treated no differently from animals, as well as humanoids with wings. They seem to be the Sky Tribes, the likes of whom sorrowfully left their society and descended to the world below. But speaking of arcs and Sky Tribes, it seems that the gods of the other planets oppose this theft, especially since it seems like they were the creators of such technology. Their ancient helpers, the automata, each held long torches, presumably being the mother flame which powered their societies, which is why it was able to come back to life thanks to Enel similarly being a boundless source of energy. In one of their murals, we're able to see a spiral within a circle above two of their heads while they work, as if to be the idea of devil fruits. And in this mural, they're depicted as using flying machines and attacking with lightning to no avail. Now that is way too similar to Enel's Arc Maxim, but we know that it can't be the same ship since the Arc Maxim was created by Gonfal's men. But if the ancient weapon Pluton, which is also a ship, can have schematics, then so can this, especially given the inaccessibility of their location and historical connection to the sun god mythology. It only makes sense. In fact, their culture of referring to their rulers as God only furthers the idea that they were previously the gods of other planets. Next line. The slaves made a wish and the sun god appeared. This was the original warrior of liberation, the sun god Nika. Mind you, this is prior to the advent of devil fruits. However, according to Dr. Vegapunk, every devil fruit is a desired possibility for human evolution. So on some level at least, Nika's lineage factor, the One Piece equivalent to DNA, was altered. And let me remind you again about the law of conservation, as especially in the case of One Piece, dreams never die. Nika may very well have been a slave himself. Whatever the case, he's likely to have wielded the power in a way that wasn't allowed or foreseen and freed the slaves. Following line. But the god of the earth became enraged. This is referring to Imu. The king of the world is the god of the earth. Their plans and machinations were disrupted by Nika. We've already seen that Imu has a rather strong temper when it comes to things not going their way. Next line. And alongside the serpent of hell, enveloped the world in death and darkness. Again, this is before devil fruits, so we're talking about straight up monsters. Biblically, the devil is also depicted as being a serpent, snake, or even a dragon. But we can't forget that this is being provided through the lens of a Norse-coded culture. And the most famous serpent in Norse mythology is undoubtedly the world serpent, Jormungandr. This may have been the original Sea King. This serpent from hell is also depicted with a long line along its body. In the past, Dory and Brogy referred to the red line as a great serpent soaked in blood. Jormungandr was known for circling the earth and biting its own tail. So perhaps the red line is the fossilized remains of this fearsome creature that did just that. But what could have possibly killed such a ferocious beast? That's not exactly mentioned in the Harley, But the mural presents us with a draconic being that came from above and had a fiery beam clash with it. We already know that the world government has no qualms when it comes to appropriation, even in the case of their enemies. And based on its placement next to the celestial bodies, I'd reckon that this is a celestial dragon. A real celestial dragon. As for the death and darkness bit, this first war cast the world into an unprecedented calamity that should have destroyed everything. And once again, mind the discretion of the world instead of the Earth. The world implies that this devastation was beyond Earth. The other planets are dead and dark. Earth is all that remains. And this passage is closed out by the words, "They can never meet again." Within the context of what was previously said, I believe that this is in regards to Imu and the Serpent of Hell. The Serpent of Hell was killed, and by all accounts, with the removal of such a threat, the god of Earth should have been thwarted. Moving on to the second world, there was breath upon the emptiness. This is to say that there were survivors on Earth. Next line. The god of the forest sent forth demons. This is the advent of devil fruits. They appear to have spawned from a massive tree. Perhaps the absolute largest tree, since apparently there were ones even bigger than the treasure tree Adam. A truly sacred tree. And this was very problematic, because although Imu would never be able to reunite with the Serpent of Hell, they would inherit its power by desiring that sort of evolution, therefore allowing them to become the devil. Next line. The sun merely spread the embers of war. Joy Boy's name, or I guess moniker, was a bit of a misnomer. He spent much of his life preparing for war above all else, for the sake of ensuring that joy would come eventually. The ancient kingdom possessed old and lost technology, and prioritized placing them where they needed to be. Poneglyphs, devil fruits, ancient weapons, Emeth and the strongest haki within him, and of course, the One Piece. Next two lines. The people of the half moon dreamed. The people of the moon dreamed. Now this part had me scratching my head for a moment. When I first read the people of the moon, the minks came to mind on account of their Sulong forms. But that just didn't seem right, and also leaves the whole half moon thing in an even more questionable spot. But then I thought back to the greatest cover story of all time once again, and remembered the sky people on the moon. So this is referring to the various sky clans, who we know left their home and were depicted as being taken by the god of Earth. And as for the people of the half moon, that's indicative of lunar phases. In reality, the appearance of the moon itself doesn't substantially change over the course of a month. Rather, its phases are relative to the presence of sunlight and the viewer's positioning on Earth. Ergo, it is only partially obscured by darkness. Which brings us to the dark-winged sky people, the Lunarians, which is Latin for moon-like, and they possess yet another culture that reveres the sun god. The reason the sky tribes and Lunarians are specified is due to the fact that they were previously planetary gods. These angelic beings had their powers and worlds taken by the devil. The Lunarians were the gods of Earth. It's no wonder why they emit fire from their bodies. Their planet was seized, and later, their home atop the Red Line, a kingdom of gods, was stolen. The mural shows us the many forces that warred against the devil that loomed above all, and wielded the power of the Mother Flame. Much of this looks very similar to the present, and based on the placement of the Harley's three parts, may seem like it's in reference to the current era. However, the pre-world government emblems should make it clear that this actually pertains to the second world. That said, we have a Sulong mink, as it has bestial features and is made out to be white. A whale, which I guess means Laboon is a bigger deal than I would have otherwise thought. A Lunarian, on account of the dark wings and accompanying flame. Emmet, the Iron Giant robot. The Ancient Kingdom, as made evident by their unique banner which was appropriated by the world government. An Ancient Giant, as it's especially big and horned. A Wano Samurai and Ninja, based on the specificity of the clothing and weaponry. A long-armed tribesman, as two long loops are featured as opposed to the regular arms on others. A dwarf due to the diminutive stature akin to the likes of the Tontara tribe. The mermaid princess, as she bears a crown on her head, is about the size of most ships and boasts a half-aquatic lower torso, a regular mink based on the anthropomorphic figure, a horned giant as evidenced by the size, horns, and information we've gained about the race. Some folks from the long leg tribe, since there are extra loops accompanying them in the form of legs. Fishmen, made out to be straight up fish, as of course these depictions are being provided by children. Other humans that weren't from the 20 kingdoms, and a buccaneer based on how large they are, and the multifaceted banner that points to them belonging to more than one culture. All on the side of the sword and shield wielding sun god. And along with the devil who is Imu, we have the forces of the 20 kingdoms. We also have what kinda looks like rain, but could very well also be the dispersal of devil fruits. A few of them have even been darkened, which may indicate especially rare or notable ones. And to further back the concept of devil fruits having been devised by the ancient sky people, we see that the attack from their Arch Maxim, although ineffective in stopping the god of Earth, is connected to the devil fruit spawning tree. Next line. Humanity killed the sun and then ascended to divinity. The original 20 kingdoms succeeded in killing Joy Boy and won the war, thereafter becoming self-proclaimed gods known as celestial dragons. And they literally ascended by taking the home of the Lunarians, which was at the highest point above the red line. Next line. The god of the sea became enraged. Joy Boy made a promise to the mermaid princess that he wasn't able to keep. In her grief, with the power of Poseidon, she flooded the earth, plunging whole societies beneath the depths. Which brings us to the third world, the one we know. There was void upon the chaos. The Void Century followed the aftermath of the previous war. Joy Boy and his forces set up a myriad of contingencies that the newly established world government feared and couldn't totally account for and win against with certainty. So, prompted by the fact that everything is underwater anyways, they aimed to make it so that their enemies couldn't remember the role they might play in making a difference. Research into the Void Century became the greatest taboo. The various races became isolated and disconnected. The giants, who they couldn't easily strip of their information, were pushed towards being feared and warmongering brutes, with the blood of their strongest being diluted and degraded over the ages. And the Lunarians, whose very existence stood to defy their claim as the gods of the earth, were hunted to the brink of extinction, with just a tip about them being worth more than most devil fruits. It's no wonder why we have to depend on the carvings of children. Next line. The unbidden shadows. The fact that even the identity or very existence of the world's ruler is obscured. A faceless, non-existent enemy is one that cannot be resisted. Next line. Remember the day of the promise, and they hear the voice of the fragmented moon. The various bits of information and secrets that will remind those on the sun god side of the role they are meant to play. Next line. The god of the sun dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. Luffy is unfettered. He can be ignorant and things will still play out around him. He's pure of heart, and that's what the world needs. He'll follow his gut and do what he feels is right, which will inevitably end the status quo. Next line. The sun god will return and a new dawn will come. Luffy, and namely his power as a sun god, will, and now have, reappeared. This is a message of hope for the future, and something to believe in. This is effectively the promised return of Christ. The world will inevitably be changed. And the final line. They will surely meet again. Friends across the ages, across time, will be reunited. Oh man, great lore and theories are the best. I just cannot get enough. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you have any thoughts of your own, don't hesitate to drop a comment. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.